Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Pickles and Vodka, the unfiltered mental health podcast dedicated to all the things no one wants to talk about in real life. I am your host, Christina. It is Monday, December 9th. The year's almost over. This is actually kind of a milestone in the life of the podcast because this is the last episode of 2019 in which I will interview a guest because I have something planned for the final episode of the year, but it'll be by myself. So I was just looking over the list of people I've had on the podcast, and it's really humbling to think about all you guys volunteering your stories and your time and just being willing to be so vulnerable. Like, a lot of you were basically strangers to me when you signed up to be on my podcast, and it's just really special to go back and, remember all of those conversations we had. And I do have something special planned for next episode. I want to recognize some of you guys. I have some stuff I want to talk about, but today's episode, I interview Elena. She talks about her struggles with bulimia. She talks about a concept called harm reduction, which I think I mentioned on here before, but basically harm reduction is when you're engaging in an unhealthy behavior and you're not ready to stop yet, or you can't stop yet, but you're taking steps to minimize the harm that you're doing to yourself. And we talk about the physical side of harm reduction, for instance, brushing your teeth with baking soda after you purge. But I wanted to talk about mental harm reduction, which is something that Elena and I did not discuss in our conversation. Basically, that's been a theme in my life lately, is just going easy on myself, just being gentle to myself and not treating myself like trash, because, it's easy to go through the motions and, take care of yourself physically, I guess, but mentally it's a lot harder. And my brother and my friend Bianca have actually been helping me a lot this last month, just realizing that it's okay to mess up. I know that's like my whole tagline for this podcast, but it's a lot easier to tell others to do it than it is to do it myself. And I'm definitely a hypocrite when it comes to that. I'm really hard on myself, and when I set a goal, it's usually a really lofty one, and when I inevitably fail, I just treat myself like trash. Oh, hello. I got a text. So I wanted to take a few moments to talk about the holidays because they're coming up faster than a lot of us would like, and it's a really hard time of year to have a mental illness, whether you're spending it alone or you're traveling to be with family. I just really wanted to put something together to help you guys during this time. So you might remember last week I put out an Instagram story asking you guys for your holiday survival tips, and I got a lot from you guys. I'm really grateful, but I wanted to say that I'm still accepting them. So if you have any tips for surviving the holidays with a mental illness, or if you have any stories from your own experiences, I would love to hear them. You can DM me on Instagram. You can email me, picklesandvodkapodcast@gmail.com, and I will be featuring your stuff in an upcoming episode. So look forward to that. I'm also planning on taking a tiny break in 2020, just, for a couple weeks at the beginning of the year. But after that, I will be accepting new guests. So if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast and talking about your mental health experiences, just hit me up and we'll make the magic happen. You'll probably notice this week that we have a few minor technical difficulties. I mean, more than usual anyway. I really don't know what I'm doing. Like, I did take a few audio classes in college, but whenever I encounter like minor errors with my microphone, I don't know what to do. I'm not really super familiar with the program. And so this week we had some problems recording, and I could have edited out some stuff, but I left it in just because it's kind of fun to hear what goes on behind the scenes. And also I want to share with you guys that, it's not perfect and we're just figuring it out as we go too. So really excited about the episode. I hope you guys have a great Monday. I'm just going to jump right into the interview. and hang in there. Oh, okay. Well, I just hit record, so it wasn't going this whole time.
Oh, great.
I'm
Fantastic.
happy that I noticed that.
Yeah. Pretty early on, too, so that's good.
Yeah, one time I was recording with this guest, and we went for like 40 minutes, and then I realized it wasn't recording.
Oh, no.
And she had to go, so we had to like reschedule it, and it was a whole mess. But the second time around, we were like on our A game.
I'm sure, yeah. I already practiced it once, sort of.
Nice. So do you pronounce your name Elena or Elena?
Elena.
Elena?
Yes.
Okay. I'm so sorry. There's like, it sounds like there's a helicopter in the background.
Really?
I'm gonna... Anyway, sorry guys. We just spent the last like 10 minutes trying to figure out our microphones, and we're good now.
Technology is hard.
Yes. Yeah, my coworker is like 40, and he's always giving me a lot of shit for being a millennial. But the joke's on him because I grew up like super homeschooled and sheltered, and so half the stuff he's talking about I don't even know about.
Me too. Like most like pop culture references, they go over my head. Never seen SpongeBob.
Me neither! Oh my god! My mom thought it was like stupid.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to watch anything on Nickelodeon as kids.
Yeah, Nickelodeon was like the devil channel.
Apparently.
If we watched it, we would like suddenly rebel against our parents and become wise asses, I guess.
That's what my parents thought too, so.
Okay, so as you were saying before this whole audio thing happened, you live in Kentucky now.
Yes.
But you grew up in a Chicago suburb.
Yep, that's right.
Which I also grew up in a Chicago suburb, so represent.
Yep, small world.
I know. And your name's Elena.
Yes, my
and
name
you're
is
20 and you're 21, and
yes.
I will let you explain the rest of your story.
Okay. So when I was in middle school, I started to really struggle with a lot of like mood disorder type problems, but I wasn't really ready to seek out help yet.
What do you mean by mood disorder problems?
So I didn't really know how to label emotions when I was younger. That was like a really hard thing for me. Like I just knew that I was feeling bad all the time, but I never was able to realize like, oh, I feel anxious or I feel depressed, but that's really what it was. So I didn't really know that it wasn't normal. I kind of thought everyone felt crappy all the time.
Gotcha.
But then when I was older and I was in high school, we went on this retreat my junior year, and there's like a lot of like witness talks. It was like a Catholic-based retreat, and a lot of people talked about their own struggles with different things in their lives, and some of it was mental health related, and I realized like, wow, that's kind of what I'm going through. So at that point, I started seeing a therapist, and it was just a very bizarre experience for me because I'd never really talked about my emotions or my feelings with anyone before.
Your parents don't encourage that?
No, not at all. My family's very like closed off. I kind of felt like I was entering new territory. And I know my therapist was frustrated. She's like kept trying to get me to talk, and I never really knew what to say. And at that time, I was also bulimic, so I was struggling with that too.
What time did that start for you?
Around age 15-ish, I'd say, yes, around there. So that was hard too, and my parents did not understand at all, which I understand. Like eating disorders are hard to understand.
Oh yeah.
Just in general, for people who don't experience them themselves. But my parents were like really it was very foreign to them. Like I remember my parents just asked like, "Why don't you just stop doing it? It's just a bad habit. Just stop. Just have some willpower and just like stop doing that." So,
girl.
They just really did not understand.
Did they know, like, right from the start that you were doing it?
My therapist told them. So,
yeah. Did you feel like that was a breach of confidence?
No, I was actually glad that she did, because I definitely wouldn't have had the courage to tell them.
If you can pinpoint something that started it, what would it be?
I don't really know.
That's a really hard question, I realize.
I know. It's hard. And it's not just one thing, you know. I think just like growing, I mean, the mood disorder started first, like the anxiety and depression. That was definitely first. So I think maybe just like my eating disorder was part of coping with that in a way. And then my family has been kind of like weird about food my whole life. My mom's very health conscious, almost to an extreme. So growing up, we were like vegetarian and gluten free, and there are a lot of foods that were good foods and bad foods, and you can't eat that, and you have to eat this, and just a lot of kind of shame and guilt around food.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was probably internalized growing up.
Totally. That sounds pretty disordered to me.
Yeah, it
It's
was.
crazy how, like, there's so much disordered behavior that's normalized in society that we don't realize is disordered behavior.
Oh, definitely.
Like, labeling foods good and bad. Like, foods are not inherently good or bad. They're just food. Like, it's just calories that give you energy, you know? Yeah.
Family, there's a lot of like shaming about carbs. Like carbs are bad for you. Carbs are empty calories. They serve no purpose, but you need carbs. Like everyone needs carbs.
Oh, yeah. And the trends change, like, every year. Like, right now, carbs are evil. Next year, it'll be, like, I don't know, cheese.
Yeah, or eggs. You never know.
Yeah. So, you grew up with a pretty weird attitude towards food, you said?
Yes, definitely.
Do you
And
have
then,
any siblings?
yes, I have a sister. She's 2 years older than I am. And I think that's also probably part of it, just like the competitive nature of having siblings. She was always like naturally thin growing up. And I wasn't overweight, I was just normal. But she got a lot of praise for being like extra thin, I suppose. And I don't know, I think that was hard for me to watch that and then feel fat because no one's saying that about me, even
Yeah.
though I was fine, really.
Did you ever talk to her about it?
No, we were never close. So.
Okay. So, why do you binge and purge now?
I think at this point it's just such a habit, and even more than a habit, to the part where it's like just kind of part of who I am. As like horrible as that sounds, but I've been doing this for so long, it's like I don't know who I would be if I wasn't binging and purging.
What do you think has changed about why you do it now compared to why you did it then?
I think everything's changed because when I first started doing it, it was pretty obvious like why I did it each time. Like me and my therapist, we talk about like what triggered that binge and all this stuff, and usually it's because I was stressed out about school or I was anxious about something. It was always kind of tied to a strong emotion that I was trying to kind of bury. And now I think there's no reason. I do it all the time for no reason.
It's a habit. You feel weird if you don't do it.
Yes.
I mean, it is an addiction, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, definitely. And I used to kind of feel like upset whenever I do it, and it'd be kind of like an emotional thing. And now I just kind of do it without blinking and just move on with my day.
Have you given any thought to, like, the health consequences?
Definitely, I have. The biggest thing that's my concern is my teeth. I worry about the effect on my teeth a lot. You can get severe electrolyte imbalances, stuff like that. But I guess I've kind of become complacent where I feel like it's unlikely to change or get much better. So I'm just kind of like doing whatever harm reduction I can do and just kind of living with it. I don't know.
I'm drinking a Gatorade as we speak.
I drink a lot of Gatorade and Pedialyte, so
Oh God, Pedialyte.
I love Pedialyte.
My mom used to drink those Ensures. She would
Yeah.
get like the chocolate kind, and I used to steal them from the fridge like as a kid. And now I'm like, what the fuck?
They just remind me of treatment.
Yeah.
I can't imagine drinking that when you're not in treatment. Like, why?
Oh, so that sorry, you were talking about growing up and then we kind of jumped forward a lot. Have you ever been in treatment for your eating disorder?
Yes, I have. So that first therapist who I saw, starting at age 16, I saw her for about 5 months, and then she fired me as a client
How
because
come?
I know people always are shocked to hear that. I guess it's not that common thing, but I guess I wasn't getting better fast enough or at all.
What?
And yeah, so she told me that she felt it was her moral obligation to stop seeing me and refer me to a higher level of treatment. So
I mean, doesn't this bitch want to get paid?
I know.
I
You think she'd
mean,
do that like 2 times a week or something? I don't know. But
also that like you were pretty young. That just seems kind of strange that
yeah,
she would do that.
maybe she was tired of me. Who knows? But yeah, so after about 5 months, she stopped seeing me. And she referred me to this eating disorder clinic about like 45 minutes from my house. And the only problem was that like my insurance was really shitty when I was a kid, like under 18.
Uh-huh.
And like my insurance was like a HMO, I think it's called. So it was like the lowest, like least covered insurance. And so my parents had to pay for all my treatment out of pocket.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. Cringe.
That
So
shit is so expensive.
it's
It
crazy.
makes me so sad that like the reason a lot of people don't seek treatment is just because of the price tag. It's
Definitely.
insane.
And for my parents, they were okay to pay for like once a week therapy. Like even that's expensive.
Oh yeah.
It's middle class, so it's kind of a burden. But when you talk about like the next level, it's like so much more expensive. I ended up doing 3 weeks at that center, and it was like 6 grand, I think.
Fuck. I mean, I believe it. Like, I'm not that shocked. It's just, I'm glad your parents did it.
I'm glad too. I wouldn't say it like helped a whole lot, but I am glad that I did it because it did help some.
What was your
That
mindset going into it?
I felt really defeated. It's kind of hard to be fired by a therapist and be like, "Wow, you think I'm that bad? Like you can't even help me?" Like,
Yeah, that's like the last resort.
yes. And, like she was the first therapist I ever saw. So
Oh
kind of be
my
like, "Wow,
God.
like maybe like I'm so sick. I'm like too bad for like anyone to help me." I don't know.
Oh
Whenever I
my
went into
God.
the treatment center, I was just really defeated, but I wanted to make the most of it. So I was determined to like really try. In my opinion, therapy is just so tiring, and it's possible to just kind of give up and just kind of like sit through it and not really put in as much effort anymore.
Totally.
But I really wanted to make the most of it when I went in for my new treatment center, and so I did. But it was a little weird because at that point I was either 17 or almost turning 17. And I was in the teen program, of course, but there's only one other person there my age, and everyone else was like 12, 13, 14, which is fine, but I just kind of felt weird in group. Like, my life experience and their life experience is so different, and I just felt out of place.
Well, yeah, that's a really, at that stage in life, the differences are definitely more pronounced.
Definitely.
So yeah, I would feel weird too. And when you're 17, you're basically an adult, but you're not really an adult. You're at that weird point where no one is really treating you like a kid or an adult.
Yeah, it was definitely a strange experience. I hated group therapy. I thought it was kind of pointless because the therapists who like led the group didn't really talk a whole lot. She just kind of would pose a question, then the rest of us would talk, and I just didn't really gain very much from hearing the fellow patients talking about their lives.
Yeah, I was just kind of like getting on a soapbox and like venting.
Yeah, that's what it was like. And of course, you're restricted. You can't say certain things. You can't say certain words. So it was kind of confusing to try to understand someone's story when it's so censored,
Yeah.
also.
Would people try to offer each other advice at least?
Yeah, they would, which is kind of nice, but also at that time, I didn't really want advice from someone 5 years younger than I was.
Yeah.
And I was,
Understandable.
so yeah, it was okay. And then we had meal times, just weird, because we all kind of sat at the same table, but we couldn't talk about most topics. We couldn't talk about food at all, period. And then there's like a dietitian who kind of made the rounds, and it was just a very strange environment.
Yeah. I can remember my own days in a treatment center when I was the same age, and it's, you feel like you're being babysat.
Definitely.
And the whole being censored thing is really hard to get past, I think.
It's definitely weird.
It's
And
like
then
everyone knows why you're there.
right.
Everyone knows you're all fucked up about food. Why can't you just talk about it? Because you can't talk about it with normal people. Like, can't you at least talk about it with like fellow disordered
Right.
people?
I agree with that. Like I wouldn't be offended if someone said like the word calorie. It wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say calorie. You're not allowed to say fat.
Yes.
Stuff like that. Ugh, this is bringing back memories.
And then I remember this one weird rule where for the meals you had to bring one dairy and one fruit. So you could bring like an apple and a cheese stick, or you could bring like a banana and a carton of milk. Like just you could choose a fruit and a dairy. And I would always choose the lowest calorie things, which kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? I would
Yeah.
choose like the lowest calorie fruit I could find and lowest calorie. Even though I was trying, it was hard to resist, like, the temptation to take control of the little things that you could take control of.
Well, yeah,
So
because I mean, were you still binging and purging while you were in this treatment program?
Yeah, definitely less, but I still was.
Okay. I mean, yeah, your whole world is changing. You're losing some aspects of control, and the brain just seizes onto whatever it can. And they do make it really easy to find loopholes.
Yes, that's the funny thing too, is like no one really cared to check what you were choosing to have as your fruit and your dairy. I thought for sure someone was going to call me out on it, like, you realize you chose the lightest options possible, but no one cared. No one said anything to me
It's like,
about it.
oh, she's here for bulimia, so we don't have to worry about what she's eating.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were there for 3 weeks?
Yes.
And then did the money just run out, or you just decided it
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
helping?
supposed to be like a 3-month program, something like that. It was supposed to be definitely longer term, but my parents couldn't afford it anymore, so they pulled me out of it. The last day, my mom was crying because she's like, I feel so bad that we have to cut this short and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it sucks, but what can you do?
You seem like you have a really positive attitude.
I just want to make the most of what I have, I suppose. I mean, it would be great if I could have stayed longer, but it is what it is. So it ended up being kind of a good thing, though, because after that, my mom found this woman who has a private practice, and she offered one-on-one therapy and then a weekly group therapy. And although I don't like group therapy, I really did enjoy that group therapy because it was more like a class. It was like a DBT skills kind of group.
And what does DBT stand for?
It's dialectical behavioral therapy.
I'm sure I've talked about it on this podcast before, but I can't remember acronyms to save my life.
It's okay.
What is that exactly?
It's a type of therapy that really focuses on emotional regulation. So a lot of things that we learned in the class is like ways to self-soothe, calm yourself down, manage your emotions, ways to think through problems in like a very balanced approach. So I really did enjoy that. There were like 2 therapists who taught the class, and then we were talking group how we could apply it to our own lives, and we do like worksheet pages and everything. And that was probably the healthiest I've been since I got sick, was during that time, because it was just a great support system. And then I had one-on-one therapy once a week with that therapist, and she was the best ever. She did like all her like PhD research on eating disorders, so she really like knew what she was doing.
Nice. It's so hard to find that.
Yes, definitely.
Was your insurance paying for it at this point, or were your parents still paying for it?
Still my parents.
Okay. But it was cheaper than the other program?
Yes, it was. So that was really great. And that therapist was like, no bullshit. Like she would cut me off if I was starting to go down a rabbit hole.
Dude, that's the best kind of therapist.
Yes.
I hate it when they're too nice.
I know. And she knew all my patterns, like all the self-sabotaging bullshit that I do. She knew all of it, so she could cut me off right away and redirect me, and it was just great.
Like, what's an example?
I guess, I don't even realize when I do this, but I guess if like the therapy appointment gets too hard, I kind of start to shut down and like refuse to talk. It sounds so like childish and stupid, but like I guess I kind of do that self-consciously. So I remember one time she told me like, okay, you can go home now. And it had only been like 10 minutes. She's like, I'll tell your mom that like you didn't want to talk and we'll try again next week. And she just would not like entertain my bullshit. And so then I was like, okay, I'll talk. Like we can talk through this. So.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, she was great. But then at that point I was about to be 18 and about to go to college. So I was going to have to move away. So. Longer.
Is that your puppy in the background?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh my god, you have the cutest dog ever.
He's crazy. He's a handful, but I love him.
You should send me a picture so I can post it to my Instagram story.
Yes, I will.
Listeners can see just how cute he is. What's his name?
Alistair.
Alistair, that's so cute. Okay, anyway, tell me about going to college.
So going to college was really rough because I was in a different state. I didn't know anyone, and like my whole support network I had built over the past year was just gone. So I felt kind of like, I don't know, very out on my own, and I wasn't ready to be. And then college dining halls is a whole other problem.
Oh my god. For a bulimic?
Yes.
Like, it's hell and heaven at the same time.
Yes. I don't know how other colleges are, but my college, you got a certain number of meal swipes a week. And then whenever you go to like the dining hall, you just swiped in. And then there's like no limit to how much you can get. You can get whatever you want. And for like as long as you want, you can stay there for 3 hours if you want to. Like no one cares. Like, once you're in, you're in. You can just like do whatever you want. So,
Dude, I used to go to a college that had that, and I used to like steal cookies and stuff. Did you do that?
yeah, I stole shit. And then there were like bathrooms inside the dining hall. So I would like just binge and then purge and just go back and binge and purge again, just back to back to back because you didn't even have to leave the dining hall to use the bathroom.
That
So
was a one-stop shop.
yeah, it was really, really bad for a while. So
I think, I mean, my own bulimia also got really bad when I left the house for the first time to go to college. I think it's a pretty common scenario for people with eating disorders because, you know, you like you said, you lost your network. There's no accountability.
definitely.
You're out on your own, and especially if you go like out of state, it's like
Mhm.
it's hard to keep tabs on you.
Yeah, and it was hard because like back home, like my friends and my family, they all knew that I was struggling with an eating disorder, so they were able to support me. But I didn't tell anyone, any of my new friends at college, so they never suspected anything.
They
So
never thought it was weird that you spent 3 hours in the dining hall.
they never knew. They never knew.
Did you make a lot of friends at that college?
Yeah, I actually did. I lived in honors housing, so it was like a smaller community in the dorms. So I had a lot of really good friends. But I was
Uh,
also kind of bitter and unhappy to be at that university.
oh, sorry. I was just about to ask what made you go out of state to that particular school.
So I got a scholarship to go there, and my parents, they didn't want to pay for my college, obviously. Like they'd already spent enough on my treatment.
Yeah.
They were like, you can go here, or we're not going to pay for, a different college. So I really didn't have a choice at the end, and I just felt so frustrated and powerless. So I was just very bitter for the first year, I'd say, unhappy, but slowly I got more used to it, and now I'm really happy here. I'm glad I came here for college.
What
But
year are you?
I'm a senior. I have one semester left.
Oh my God, you're in the final stretch.
I know, it's
And
crazy. It
what?
goes so fast.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, and you just have done. You haven't had any breaks, right? You've just been doing it
Nope. I've
nonstop.
been full time since the beginning.
Yeah, it goes by super, super fast. What are you studying?
So I'm a dual degree. I'm gonna get one bachelor's degree in Spanish and then one in communication disorders. So I'm looking at grad school next year for speech pathology.
What is that exactly?
So it's like anything to do with the speaking or swallowing apparatus. So you can do speech therapy for kids or adults, or you can do swallowing therapy for anyone like who's had like a stroke or brain injury, anything that would affect the swallowing mechanisms, like any kind of paralysis or anything like that.
What led you to that?
I always wanted something medical related, but I'm really, really bad with needles. Like I almost always pass out when I get my blood drawn. So that ruled out most things. And then I like language a lot, so that would be a good fit for me.
Nice. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And like now that I'm here, I've like considered many times throughout my college career, I thought about going back to therapy and, you know, all of that, but it's just kind of overwhelming to start over again.
Oh wow, so you haven't done anything since you
Nope,
got
not
there?
since I got here, yeah.
Is there a particular reason?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I have a lot better insurance now, actually, than I did when I was younger. So I would be able to afford it now, which is good. But the area that I'm in has almost no therapists who specialize in eating disorders. I mean, there are plenty who will do it, but it's not their primary focus.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of like addiction in this area of the country, a lot of opioid abuse. And most of what you see is like addiction treatment centers and addiction therapists. So it's really hard to kind of find someone who would be able to help me. And there's also like a lot of like Christian based kind of therapy, which is kind of a regional thing, I suppose, but I'm not interested in that either.
Okay. I can also relate to a lot of what you're saying. My college was in Oklahoma,
Ooh,
so right
I
in
bet.
the smack dab in the middle of the Bible Belt.
Yeah, and I mean, just kind of starting over with a new therapist is so hard too, because you have to get them up to date and everything, and explain your whole life story from the
Hmm.
beginning, and I don't know.
And it's not a guarantee either. Like, what if you do all that and then you don't like them? You have to start all over.
I've definitely made appointments before and then just cancel them because I'm like,
Aw.
I don't want to go to this.
Going back to your freshman year, did the bulimia keep worsening or did it slowly like get better?
I would say it just kind of kept worsening, but it did get better when I got off campus my sophomore year. That was a lot of like a very positive change for me, I think, because like the dining hall was just such a temptation. It was so like easy to do. It was right there. It was like next to my dorm. Like it was so hard to like not like go there,
Hi,
but
Alistair.
he wants attention. But yeah, once I was off campus, it definitely got easier to manage.
So you said that you practice a lot of harm reduction. Can you explain that concept to the listeners who might not know?
So my kind of understanding of harm reduction is accepting that you won't be able to like stop the behavior entirely right now at this point in your life. So you're just going to take certain measures to reduce the long-term effects or even short-term effects that it's going to have on your body. So with bulimia, I make sure that I stay hydrated because when you're purging, you're dehydrating your body. And I make sure that I drink like Gatorade and Pedialyte, which replenishes your electrolytes. And I try to take care of my teeth as much as possible, like using baking soda and stuff like that to clear out the stomach acid.
That's a big one for sure.
Just stuff like that I try to keep in mind because I've had plenty of times where I've just like fainted because of the binging and purging. So I try to make sure my electrolytes aren't fucked up and my hydration and everything. So
yeah, that shit can get scary really fast.
yeah, definitely.
So as a bulimic person, have you ever felt like I don't know, for me personally, being bulimic, I sometimes I feel like my sickness is fake because like I love food and I love eating food, and I know within the eating disorder community there's a lot of imposter syndrome where like you feel like you're not sick enough to need attention. Like you can be at like a death's door, like binging and purging every waking minute, and you still feel like, or I still feel like I don't need help. So, I mean, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I kind of cycle through different, I guess, phases in my life. Like I go through phases where I'm just binging and purging all the time and eating normally, but outside of that, I have stages where I'm restricting a lot more and not really binging and purging. So I don't know. I feel like since I kind of fluctuate a lot in my behaviors, it doesn't really feel as valid. I don't know. It's kind of hard to organize in my mind because like last year I was just restricting a lot and lost a lot of weight, and now I'm just kind of chilling and binging and purging. I don't really care too much about calories at this point.
Yeah, it's just the behavior. It's the addiction.
Yeah. But I know like it's quite likely in a few months I'll start to care again, and then just kind of a cycle that I go through.
Totally. And you've been going through that cycle since you were 15?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, do you still talk to your parents at all? Like how much contact do you maintain with them?
I text them. We don't really talk much.
Okay. Do you go home?
Not often. I went home for Thanksgiving, and that was the first time I've been home in about a year. And I ended up just leaving early. I was going to stay for like the whole weekend, and then after Thanksgiving, I just went home.
Did anything in particular cause it, or you were just not having it?
Yeah, my parents are just like very hard to get along with. So I was like, all right, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that they paid for your treatment all those years.
I mean, it was nice of them to pay for it, but they kind of just use it as leverage. Like, we paid for that, so we're not going to pay for anything else now, kind of thing.
Do they do the same thing to your sister?
No, they paid for her college.
Damn, that's really shitty.
Yeah.
Have you ever like gotten into fights with them about it?
No, no.
So you don't really talk to them at all, like good or bad?
No, we just end up fighting if we talk like about dumb stuff. So, like when I was over there for Thanksgiving, they complained because Alistair was whining, like you just heard on the podcast. He does it sometimes, and I was like, he's a puppy. Like I don't know what you expect from him. Like he's gonna whine every once in a while.
Yeah.
At least he doesn't bark. At least he doesn't do like other stuff. He doesn't destroy things. So
he knows we're talking about him.
Yeah. I ended up coming back home, and my dad called me when I was driving back. He's like, I'm sorry, like next time it'll be different. Now that we've gotten to know your dog and all this stuff. I'm like, this is crazy that we're fighting over whether you've gotten to know my dog or not.
Like you haven't seen your daughter in a year, and this is what you choose to like fixate on?
Yes, exactly. It's silly.
Yeah, that's rough. when you don't have a support system at home, it's really hard. Like, I'm incredibly fortunate to have a supportive family. I mean, one of the reasons I do have such a good relationship with them is because I don't live with them. Like, I live on the other side of the country. I mean, it wasn't always like that, but we're pretty civil now. Like, when we get together, they know about my struggles and they don't bug me about it. But, like, if I ask for help, they'll support me. So I'm very fortunate in that way.
Well, that's good.
I mean, my mom also had an eating disorder herself, so she's no stranger to it. That helps a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure she can understand a little bit more.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't know that about your parents because they don't really talk about mental health, right?
Yeah, they don't really. My dad, he was born in Mexico and raised there. So I think there's a little bit of a cultural difference. He doesn't really understand a lot of the open dialogue about mental illness that's more common in this country than it is in other places in the world.
Have you ever been outside of the country?
Yeah, I've been to Mexico and Chile.
And how long were you there?
Mexico, I've just been for like 2 weeks at a time, like
Okay.
on vacation or whatever. And I was in Chile for 4 weeks.
Okay. So was that long enough to kind of notice the cultural differences in mental health wise, or were you even like looking for it?
No, not really. I wasn't really paying much attention.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really curious about it. And my sister-in-law is Filipino. She was on the podcast a few months ago talking about her culture and how they just sweep everything under the rug and they don't talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. It
yeah,
just really fascinates me.
definitely. Me too. I mean, I can't speak to like Mexican culture as a whole, but definitely in my family, like my dad's side, it's totally common and normal to talk about someone's body, like describe them as like fat or thin. Like there are a lot of nicknames, like terms of endearment that have to do with like being thin, stuff like that. Just kind of normal.
Wait, so like for instance, they would describe someone as fat, but it wouldn't be a bad thing. It would just be like a nickname or I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know. It's weird for me to think about because when you're deep in your disorder, you see someone heavier than you, and you just can't even imagine being comfortable with that kind of body. But
yeah, that's
turns
true.
out some people care about other things. And you.
Yeah, yes, there are other hobbies out there.
Have you had any romantic relationships over the years?
Oh, yes, I have. I dated one guy from 18 until 19. One for like 5 months when I was 19. And then recently, this one that guy dated him from 20 to about a month ago.
Okay. How did your eating disorder play into those relationships?
The first one, I told him from the jump about my eating disorder, and he was really understanding as well as he could have been, but he also didn't really understand eating disorders, especially bulimia. He would just say like, "Oh, you're beautiful, you're perfect how you are. Like you don't have to do this."
Classic.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not doing this, quote, doing this because of any aesthetic reason.
I think
So,
that's a really common misconception. I mean, even my own brother, who I love and who I tell everything to, he doesn't understand bulimia at all.
yeah,
Like he thinks it's. I mean, he thought it was about looks. I had to kind of explain. No, it's an addiction.
yeah.
I think it's cool that you just told him right off the bat, though. Like, how do you even do that? I can't imagine.
I don't know. I was brave, I guess. I was like young. I'm like, oh, I want like no secrets between us. I want this to be a good relationship. And I mean, looking back, I laugh at that because that was just silly. I mean, he ended up being kind of a dick about it at the end, where he wanted me to tell him every time that I binged and purged. I'm like, you realize it's gonna be like a lot of times, and he's like, yeah, I just want to know. And I'm like, well, I don't want to talk about it every time. Like, I don't want to have this conversation about it every time. Like, I just kind of got irritated with it. And then he kind of tried to like be a therapist, sort of like armchair psychologist. And I'm like, I don't want you to do that. Like, just shut up about it. Like,
I mean, that they think it's helping though. Like that's the
I know.
thing. I mean, it's such a difficult disease to understand. They think like holding you accountable will help you.
Right. And like, there are definitely times in my life where I'm very just complacent in it. And I'm like, oh, this is my life right now. Like, I'm still moving forward. I'm still doing school, still working on my life.
Well, yeah,
And
I was just about to
like,
say that's what you said earlier. Like it's just part of who you are and you don't love it, but I feel like
yeah,
everyone has something. you know?
Yeah, and like he at the time he would like try to like be like, oh, like let's figure out some solutions. Let's talk about this. Let's do this. And like I don't want to. Like I don't know. Like I don't care. Like just drop it.
We'll go back to romantic relationships in a little bit, but have you ever felt like you've been stigmatized because of your bulimia?
I don't think so.
Like,
I don't really talk to many people about it. Only like a couple friends know. Like I don't know. I don't really care to talk about it a whole lot.
well, and I think that is kind of telling in and of itself, though, that you don't want to talk about it. Like, for instance, I've struggled with alcohol addiction and bulimia, and it was way easier to tell people about the alcohol addiction because that's like it's a very familiar narrative,
Right.
and the steps to recover are way more linear, I think. But when I try to talk to people about my bulimia, it's just so shameful,
Hmm.
and like I don't want them to get the wrong idea about me, and like you said, nobody really understands.
Yeah, and for me it's hard because I'm a normal body weight. Like most bulimics are like either a normal weight or a little bit overweight. But still for me it's hard to tell people like, "Hey, I have an eating disorder" when I'm not underweight because I feel like they're gonna look at me like, "What? Like what are you talking about? You don't look like you do." And
Well, and
like,
that goes back to what I was saying earlier about having the imposter syndrome. Like, because you don't look like, a stick, you feel like, or maybe other people feel like you don't deserve that kind of attention. I don't know.
I'm just kind of afraid of like what they're thinking in their head about me.
Now, when I reached out to you, and asked you kind of what you wanted to talk about, one of the things you said was anxiety. I don't think you've mentioned that a lot yet.
Yeah, I don't really know what really to say about that. I feel like that really just kind of ties in a lot to my eating disorder.
In what
Uh,
ways?
I think I kind of like that's just always there in the back burner of the anxiety. I mean, right now it's mostly about like connected to school since I'm a student. Like, I kind of like freak out about my assignments and like my tests and all of that, and just kind of my life in general. I'm like, oh, my life, where's it going? What am I doing? All this stuff. So I think I just kind of turn to my eating disorder whenever I'm feeling really anxious. It's kind of like a distraction,
It kind of
definitely.
like helps you self soothe.
Yeah, it's like something else to focus on, like kill a few hours doing this instead.
Yeah. You mentioned when you were in that good therapy group that you liked that you learned some like other self-soothing methods. Do you remember what they were?
I don't really remember all of them. I definitely don't use very many of them anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you like if what you've done that's like you found helpful over the years, but I mean, I don't know. The whole point of this podcast is to just talk about how fucked up we are, and like sometimes I
I,
feel pressure to like be like some of my friends and family have been like, your podcast isn't positive enough. You need to leave people with a message. I'm like, you're misunderstanding the whole point then.
that's life though. It's not
That's
always positive.
seriously.
There's one thing I do remember. It's like temperature. Like you can put like run your hands and your wrists under really cold water to kind of like ground yourself. And that's something I still do like today. Like if I feel like really anxious, like I'm like freaking out, I just like go to the bathroom and like put my wrists under really, really cold water, and that kind of helps me like just chill for a second.
Have you ever tried like meditation or anything like that?
I have. I just didn't really find it terribly helpful.
I keep meaning to give it like a proper try, but it's hard to sit still for that long.
Yeah. And I kind of don't really feel like it's that rewarding for the time that you put into it. I mean, I'm sure it is once you get good at it, but like, in the beginning stages, I'm just like, I don't really want to spend my time doing this.
Do you have any sorts of hobbies or anything like that?
Yeah, I do quite a bit of hiking and camping, some backpacking. Where I live, there's like a lot of really great places to go for outdoorsy stuff.
Nice.
I like to read fiction and poetry. I do some painting as well.
Have you found that it's harder to focus on those things when you're binging and purging all the time? Or
Definitely. If I binge and purge too much, I get like super depressed and I just don't want to do anything, and then just kind of like lay in bed all day. So it just kind of becomes really like a negative spiral.
yeah. So, talking about romantic relationships again.
Oh yeah.
You said you're seeing someone now.
No, I was until recently.
Oh, okay. How did that end up?
So I kind of took a different approach with that relationship where at the beginning, I told him, like, hey, just so you know, I used to struggle with bulimia, keyword being used to. I
Yeah.
kind of it as like oh, but like, we're cool now. It's all good now, which like is dishonest. So I didn't really want to tell him that like it was still ongoing because I didn't want him to really be hyper aware of what I
Well,
was
yeah, you
doing.
didn't want him to do what the other guy did, which was,
Yeah,
act like your therapist.
exactly. And I was so afraid of that happening again, just messing up the relationship. So I'm like, I'm just going to tell him, like, so he's aware, but also not like too clued into what's going on. So that's just kind of how it was for the whole relationship, where I didn't really talk about it ever. And I'm not sure if that was a mistake or not. Like, in a way, it was nice because I felt like my eating disorder did not affect our relationship as much as it would had he known. But at the same time, like, maybe it would have been nice if he had known. I
And
don't know.
everyone's different too. Like you don't know if he would have been like the other guy, but like you can't be disappointed if you don't say anything.
Yeah, I never gave him the chance to, like, I don't know.
It's easy to say, don't date someone until you love yourself, but that's not like if it's part of your identity and something you live with on a daily basis. I think it's really important to just take what bits of normalcy you can get, which includes a healthy dating life. And I've really been wanting to talk about this for a while, is like dating with an eating disorder, because it's incredibly complicated.
Hmm.
And I was just wondering, like, if you had any pieces of hindsight from your experiences, like things you wish you'd done differently, or like tips that you have. I don't know.
I think I wish in my last relationship that I'd been more honest with him. That I wish I'd just been like, hey, just so you know, like, it's still something I struggle with, but I don't want to talk about it very often. If you have questions, you can ask me questions, but I just don't want to talk about it at length. I think if I had said something like that, that would have been a lot more fair to him because then he would have had the chance to ask me about it. And I also would have been honest about my needs and expectations, stuff like that. So,
Yeah. I mean, you're still amazingly young.
um,
um, I say that like I'm an old lady. I'm 27. That's Do you find that the more experience you get, like the more comfortable you feel like moving forward?
yeah, I think it's easier over time because I mean, when I was a teenager, I could barely talk about it ever. Like, it was like the most shameful thing to me now. And back then it was. And now I'm just like, oh, yeah. Hi, nice to meet you. I have an eating disorder. Like, I kind of like don't really care as much.
Now, is that the same approach you take with platonic friendships?
Um, yeah. I mean, I tell some of my friends, but also I don't really see how it's terribly relevant, I suppose.
Well, you've normalized it so much.
Yeah, I kind of don't really see the point, and I feel like I freak people out because my attitude's kind of so like blasé about it. I think
Yeah.
people are confused, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Like, it's just what it is, and they're like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, aren't you going to take this more seriously? And I think it's hard for people to understand. Like, I've been bulimic since I was 15. Like, it's been a while. Like, I'm just so used to it now.
Now the counter argument to that would be, you're hurting yourself actively. You're not supposed to be blasé about it. But also totally get where you're coming from, and I think in some ways we should be able to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's hard to strike a balance, right? Because like I feel like mental health issues should be more normalized for sure, and it shouldn't be just like this boogeyman in the closet. And we shouldn't be afraid to talk about it, but at the same time, we should be able to respect like how serious it is because there are some medical consequences that can come along with it as well that are very serious. So
It's all about finding that balance. Have you seen that meme or that Twitter post that's like 28 years old and the number one thing I've learned in life is if you're ever in a meeting, just say it's all about finding that balance. So you're about to graduate.
yeah,
How do you feel about it?
definitely scared. I've definitely gotten used to living here, and it's gonna be really weird to have to move again and rebuild my life somewhere else because I'm gonna go to grad school. So I'm applying right now, and then I'll have to make a choice about where I want to go. But everywhere I'm looking is far. So it's definitely going to be a big move either way.
And that could be a good thing, get a change of scenery.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a positive thing. It's just weird because when I was dating my ex, we had planned to like move together, and there's some comfort in that. Like I'm not going to do it alone. He's going to like come with me. It's going to be great. And then we break up, and now it's like, oh shit, like I have to do this all for myself. So
Yeah. Are you pretty comfortable by yourself, or is that something you struggle with?
I like living alone. I live alone now in a studio, and it's nice, and I take care of my own life and manage my own stuff. And but still, it's nice to have someone to kind of help you out and feel less alone. Being an adult, it's weird because I'm at the age where it's like I'm an adult now, but also I don't feel like an adult. I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how taxes work.
Well, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but you kind of don't know what you're doing yet.
Definitely.
I don't fucking know what I'm doing. No one knows what they're doing. That's the thing. You just gotta pretend you do.
Definitely trying my best, but it's hard.
For sure. Where do you see yourself in a year?
I definitely want to go out west somewhere. Like once I have my career started, I'll be able to afford to live somewhere, but we'll see how it goes.
What
I don't know.
about mental health wise? Where do you see yourself moving along in that regard?
I think it'll probably be like about the same, is
Yeah.
my guess. It's not that I've given up entirely on therapy. Like I probably will end up going back eventually. It's just not like a very high priority right now, I
Well, yeah, I
guess.
mean, would you feel like it's not affecting your life that negatively right now?
I mean, it does affect my life negatively, but at this point, it's manageable.
Until it's not. That's the thing.
Yeah, I'm not like deluding myself. Like I know it's going to become a worse problem like as time goes on. For right now, I kind of just want to focus on school and not really worry about therapy because for me, therapy is just so draining and so much
It
work.
really is. Which it's just so ironic that, people with mental health problems are expected to go about finding a therapist because that's literally one of the most mentally draining things you can do.
Yes.
There's got to be an easier way, you know what I'm saying?
I hope so. Someday they'll come up with something.
I know they have like that BetterHelp app and stuff like that where you can like talk to them on the phone or text them. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I thought that would not be the same.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't think I would like that.
I'm really weird about talking to people on the phone, so I feel like that would be, well, like you said, not the same.
And I feel like it's more impactful when like you can look at them in the eye and like in person therapy.
Yeah. I mean, if any of you listeners have used stuff like this and it's worked for you, let me know because I'm always looking to recommend stuff on the podcast. I mean, I really do like your attitude of, this is part of me and I'm not sweating it. Like I have mixed feelings because obviously, I mean, I'm in the same boat. I'm preaching to the choir, but
Yeah.
I do feel like if you're going to struggle with it, you might as well have that attitude,
And like I feel like everyone has their own struggles and this is just mine, so
Exactly. You do what you do to survive, and I don't know. I almost feel bad saying that, like I'm encouraging it or something.
hmm
I don't know. I just think you should be able to talk about it.
that's like the hard thing with like online eating disorder communities is like the very best ones are the ones where you just accept each other and you're
Yeah.
able to talk openly about like your struggles and no one's like judging you or criticizing you. But at the same time, that can kind of come across as like condoning or supporting eating.
Totally. Do you ever just stop and think, wow, this person is really hurting themselves. I should be more not okay with this.
Yes, definitely.
Or even to yourself, like look at yourself and think that.
Yeah, like I make light of things a lot, like my own struggles. Like I always kind of like laugh about it, like oh, LOL, like, and it's
Well,
not funny.
that's a coping mechanism though. Treating it lightly and, looking at the humorous side of things. I think that's really important just in general in life to be able to laugh at yourself and
I agree. It can come across kind of wrong sometimes to people who don't have mental illness, and then it's like, whoa, like,
yeah.
what are you doing?
Well, thank you so much for doing this so last minute.
Yeah,
I
no,
like really, really appreciate it. And I've been wanting to like have you on for a while. So it worked out so
thank you for having.
well.
Hope the sound's okay. Sorry about
Oh
the headphones.
yeah. No, it sounds great. I feel like every week I have some sort of technical difficulty and just deal with it, you know?
Yeah.
No one's going to take this too seriously, so I try not to.
That's a good attitude to have.
Yeah. All about attitude, all about finding that balance.
Perfect.
Well, you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
And yeah, I will talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.